much on Paige. I'm an alcoholic. And yeah, it is all Rob. All Rob. He loves it when I give him that amount of attention. It's his favorite thing. I'm the worst. Alrighty. So where we're picking up, we're essentially at the very top of page 74. But if you want to get to the bottom of 73, up to the top of 74, and while I give you guys a chance to find where we're at in the book, let's talk about what we've been talking about. So as we dove in the chapter into action, it's a little rude because it's a very action-heavy chapter. Oh man, you want me to do things? Didn't I do enough writing all that inventory? So what we are diving into is the fifth step. But you see, the book does what I have found that the God of my understanding does as well, which is to say meets us where we're at. Because I guarantee almost every single one of us here saw the fifth step on the wall or on the Zoom screen and thought, oh boy, I'd rather not do that. And so the first thing that we dove into as it pertained to the fifth step, which is, okay, but why do we have to do it? Because I don't want to. That sounds gross. No, thank you. Like approaching us just right there. And we spoke about the reasons in which we have to, if I have this illness, I have to do a fifth step. And we spoke about, hey, if I have the illness that is outlined in this book, I might not overcome drinking. If I do not clear away the stuff that is between me and this power, the obsession of the mind will return and I will drink again. And we spoke last week about the Missy Elliott promises. So it's like if we don't do a fifth step or if we don't hold on to those deep, dark secrets, we're going to think we lose our egoism and fear, think we've humbled ourselves, but not truly know that fearlessness, that honesty, in the sense that we find it necessary until we share all our life stories, so the contents of our inventory and those deep, dark secrets. And we flipped it and reverse it like our girl, Missy Elliott. And we saw that if we did this, if we were fearless and thorough and honest in a fifth step, we would experience a true humility. We will experience fearlessness. We would experience that freedom that we're after. And so at the very bottom of page 73, it says we must be entirely honest with somebody, top of 74, if we expect to live long or happily in this world. And that's summarizing everything that we spoke about in the previous 2 pages last week. That idea that if I want to live, and I have alcoholism, I have to get entirely honest. But deeper than that, if I want to be happy, happiness, freedom, peace, joy, that comes on the other side of a fifth step? That doesn't feel like it, but that's also how we know this whole thing is experiential. You see, I can't feel that sunlight of the Spirit. I can't feel that serenity when I'm still holding on to that shame and those secrets and my yeah buts and my andas and my, all of that stuff that I'm holding on to. I got to get free of it. And I spoke last week. This is where we ended up last week. I spoke that I'll let you know I couldn't imagine a worse fate for somebody like me than to live a long life the way I had been living it. To live a long life in that cycle of alcoholism. To live a long life the way that my life had been going. And so if I want freedom and I want peace and I want to be able to stay alive, this is the course of action that I have to take. And now we transition into, okay, but who the heck do we do a fifth step with? All right, fine, I'll do one, but who do I do it with? And that's okay if that's our attitude towards the fifth step. We don't have to be jazzercised about it, We can be, I'd rather not, but I will. That's willingness, you guys. Willingness doesn't have to look like, oh boy, I can't wait. Willingness can look like, okay, I'll do it. That's willingness. So it says, rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. And there is an intimacy. And when I talk about intimacy, I don't mean, hey, we're not going to be doing anything inappropriate in the fifth step. And to be fair, sex is quite different than intimacy, but it took me a whole lot of inventory and then fifth steps to realize that. But there is a vulnerability. Some people describe intimacy as into me see, as in a seeing into myself. And we spoke last week about how the fifth step is a letting in, that admit to let in a power greater than ourselves and another human being. Yeah, we're on 74. We didn't make it far. Thank you, Rob. You're the best. He loves it when I give him compliments. Just the worst today. All right. And for those, so right there, you can make a little note to see page 96, and we'll pop over to see page 96 to see who is the first person that I should at least consider to receive my fifth step. But I want to point something out, and in so doing, give us time to find page 96, when it says person or persons. Now, if you have never done a fifth step in your life, you are going to think I am out of my mind. Actually, most of you probably think that already, so nothing has changed. But one of the things that you can do, and a really powerful thing that you can do, and you won't want to do it on your first one. I know, I understand. Don't worry about it. But we can take our inventory or any inventory that we've written, and we can take it to multiple people to receive our fifth step. And that is a beautiful practice to get different eyes and different opinions and different, views on that same inventory. Now, to be fair, it's saying person or persons, because as we go on, we'll see like who should I consider taking it to, and we might have to take different parts to different people, but not if we pop over to page 96. Absolutely. So I know that question is not for me right now, but I'm answering it. Where to get a book? So if you're under 90 days, there's an email in the chat, and we will email you that. You can also get one at any local AA meeting in person, and stick around after, and we'll make sure we get you connected. You can also find a copy of it online. If you go to aa.org, you can look at it completely free as a PDF. So we really should have had time to find page 96, you guys. If you're not there, that's not on me. I gave us plenty of time. All right, so 96, and we're at the second paragraph, where it says, suppose now you are making your second visit to a man. We're in the chapter Working with Others, and it's talking about that second visit to a potential sponsee. That word isn't used, but it's the description of sponsor all over the book. It says he has read this volume and is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program of recovery. Having had the experience yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Let him know you're available if he wishes to make a decision, step 3, and tell his story, step 5. But do not insist upon it if he prefers somebody else. So that tie-in, the first person that I need to consider, I don't have to, but I should at least consider taking my fifth step to, is my sponsor. That's who I should take it to first, or at least consider taking it to first. And so in working with others, it's saying, hey, we make ourselves available to receive that fifth step. And I want you to know, it really awesome. Thank you so much. I was responding to something into the admin chat that nobody else could see. But I just want you to know I see your service behind the scenes, and it's appreciated. Also, my attention span, it's as bad as ever. Focusing. So what I want you to know is there's a tremendous amount of freedom. And if I do well for time, I won't do well for time. We'll get to the fifth step promises. We probably won't. But in those fifth step promises, there is power and there is freedom. But let me tell you, this program really began to come alive for me. Not when I did my first fifth step, but when I started to receive the fifth steps of others. That's when this thing came alive. So I'd encourage you, if you're sponsoring, to at least make yourself available for your sponsees to bring their fifth steps to you. So that is the first person that I should at least consider taking my fifth step to. Why? Because they're going to help me through this process. And honestly, when I work with my sponsees, what I do is I sit with them as they write their fourth-step inventory, and I help them write their fourth-step inventory. And guess what? That takes almost all of the fear out of it. Absolutely. Almost all the fear is taken out of it. And so they're like, of course I'm going to do it with you. You're the least scary option, which tells you a lot if I'm the least scary one. Nah, I'm not scary. And also, as we move through this process, it's helpful to have that information. It's helpful to be able to say, hey, what about that amends? Or hey, let's refer back to this. And it's just helpful. But that isn't our only option. So going back to page 96. And as we continue on page 90, or not 96, sorry, 74, my bad. As we continue on page 74, I want to give us a little bit of context about some of these directions. Some of these directions apply to when the book went out into the world. So the book was published in April of 1939. And I would get a copy of this book living in Calgary, Alberta, or somewhere in the UK, and there's no other sober alcoholic anywhere, across the Atlantic or anywhere in the country that I live. And I would only have this book. And I would follow its directions in order to recover and then to help others. And so I might not have the luxury of a sponsor. And in 2026, heck, if you don't want to do it with a sponsor, I will point people out that will sit with you and receive your fifth step. There is no need to postpone. There's no need to wait. Like, we got options. By the way, I can see people looking nervous and be like, is she going to point me out? Not right now, but I see that. I see you. Love it. And so we have those options, and it's a reminder of how privileged we are. It's a reminder that, man, like, I do fifth steps online all the time with people. Like, we don't even have to be in the same place. It's so easy in 2026, and it's a reminder of how much work that we had to do in those early days. So back on 74. It says, those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course will want, to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. So if you are engaged in an organized religion that you want to continue to be engaged in, and that confession is a part of those practices, well, then it makes sense. Whoa, jeez. We have an emergency alert. Gosh. How do you make that stop? That scared the crap out of me. Jeez Louise. That emergency, I think it was just for Alberta, but that went far. We went across the pond and everything. Yikes. Is it just a warning? It's just a test, everyone, so don't worry. I'm sorry for anyone that was trying to go to sleep. My goodness gracious. Gosh. Alrighty. Warning. All right. Well, that woke me up. I don't know about you guys. Gosh. And hopefully my computer muted some of the sound. Gosh. Alrighty. So it goes on. If you are engaged in a religious organization or a particular religion that has confession as a part of it, you might want to do your fifth step with a member of that organized religion, especially if you're wanting to continue seeking spiritually in that path. And if you're not, that's okay. Don't worry about that. It goes on to say, though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. So another suggestion is, even if we're not engaged in an organized religion, it might be helpful to take our fifth step to someone who is in an organized religion. Now, this is a suggestion. You don't have to do this, especially if you're going to take it to your sponsor. Just take it to your sponsor. It's all good. But where I live in the world, there's a place not far from here. It's like about an hour and a bit out of the city, and it's known as Mount St. Francis, and it's a Franciscan retreat center, and they wear the robes and stuff. And what they do is they host retreats, but one of the services they offer is they have people that will receive the fifth steps of alcoholics and members of the 12-step community in Calgary and in the surrounding area. And those are people who will just sit and listen and receive. Now, they're not going to give a lot of feedback, and that can sometimes be the downside of taking a fifth step to somebody who's not familiar with the processes. They're not going to be like, you're right, you are selfish. But there are people that like to go out there. It's a beautiful place. It's in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, so it's just gorgeous out that way. And so that is an option. Now, when we talk about that religious people might be quick to see and understand our problem, what is our problem? Our problem is ultimately that we're blocked from this power greater than ourselves. Our problem is that I've got these things, this pain, this suffering, this shame, this guilt, this selfishness, this self-centeredness, and all these manifestations, the fear, the resentment, the self-pity, and I am blocked from this power. And I need to get free so I can have this power flow through me, so I can be connected with a power greater than myself. And that's something people who practice a particular faith might be open to understanding, but not everyone. It goes on to say, if we cannot or would rather not do this, so hey, no pressure on that suggest. That's what it's saying. It says, we search our acquaintance for a closed mouth, understanding friend. And again, it's 2026. There are people in the Zoom room who absolutely will receive your fifth step if you are interested or if you are open. There are so many people who would be honored to do that. So we've got an abundance of options for people. But a lot of what we don't talk about is how do we receive a fifth step? And we're going to talk more about receiving a fifth step at the bottom paragraph of page 74. But what can be helpful is, all right, we'll do that. Get it? So what we'll do is we'll talk about what it is like to receive that fifth step. And to receive that fifth step, we don't talk about that so much, but what we can do is there's a couple lines, and this is one of the couple lines. It says, if we cannot or would rather not do it, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouth, understanding friend. And that is the deportment that I show up to receive a fifth step with. Can I be a closed mouth? Which means keep a secret, keep a confidence, not be like, hey, let me tell you what Todd shared with me in his fifth step last week. Not like that. Can I keep a confidence? And can I show up with that spirit of understanding and to show up in that spirit of friendship? And I love that idea of showing up in that spirit of friendship, because it really is that spirit of humility, that we're walking together along this spiritual path. And I'm just here to take your hand and put it in the hand of a loving, caring higher power. And we're moving and walking along this path together. So it goes on to say, perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. I'm going to say no. I know, but no. I don't know what the going rate is for psychologists where you live, but where I live, it's at minimum, it's $200. That is the cheap end. And how long did your last fifth step take? You know what I'm saying? Listen, that's a little out of budget. And I will say a lot of the methodologies that a psychologist or a psychiatrist might use is going to be different than what we're looking at. They're going to have their own modality and their own methodology, which can be very, very helpful and wonderful and beneficial, but it's not what we're trying to do. Also, when was the last time you got more than 15 minutes with your general practitioner? You know what I mean? And what do they say? It's bring in one thing, and it's hey, I got this rash. Also, I've got the exact nature of my wrongs contained in several notebooks. He's going to want to help with the rash. He's probably not, or she or whoever, they're probably not listening to all of that. So it goes on to say, it may be one of our own family. No. You know that meme from The Office where Michael Scott is no, dear God, no. That's what always comes to mind. No. But we cannot disclose anything to our wives or parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. Just for a moment, just a brief moment, imagine what it might be like to take something yeah, absolutely. What it might be like to take your sex inventory to your spouse or your mom. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to do that. We have people that will receive it. No. And I'm throwing it out there. Your spouse does not need to know the whole contents of your inventory. That's not healthy. No. So, but again, we're talking, this is a book that really is meeting us where we're at. I'm joking about it, but keep in mind, we put, this book comes out into the world and I'm reading its directions and I'm alone in Calgary, Alberta, and I don't know a single other sober soul, and you're telling me I gotta do a confession? Oh man, and I'm scared and I'm intimidated by this prospect. How many of us are scared and intimidated by this prospect? And yeah, we have our sponsors that took us through it, right? And so that idea of like, hey, why don't you pick somebody, at least somebody that you're open to doing it with, people you would feel comfortable with. So again, I just want to offer a lot of grace with that suggestion and point out, man, how lucky we are to be alive and sober in the year that we are. It goes on to say, but it may be one of our own family. No, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which would hurt them and make them unhappy. Yeah. And this is a beautiful ideal. It says we have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. And that's important. We don't have to consider that as heavily in the 5th step, but as we go through our 9th step amends, I don't have the ability to get free and to unburden myself by laying that burden on somebody who will be harmed by it. And you know who's not going to be harmed by your 5th step? Your sponsor. Your sponsor's not going to be harmed. It's going to be okay. I promise. And it says such parts of our story we will tell to someone who will understand, yet be unaffected. And you know who is going to understand yet be unaffected? Your sponsor, because they're taking you through the work. They're going to understand. And not only are they going to be unaffected, they're going to be like, oh, me too. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that last Tuesday, you know. That's what the emergency alert was about. I'm just kidding. It was just a test. I could have tested it a little quieter, though. Alrighty. So it goes on to say, it says the rule is, wait a minute, the rule is? I thought there were no rules in AA. What is this the rule is? The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. And that is another beautiful ideal to take into my life. Now, for those of us who like to beat ourselves up, I just want to caveat that and put a little condition on that. Because we might use this as to like extreme sort of like self-flagellation and just beating ourselves up. And that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about when we talk about we must, by the way, musty, there's a rule and it's musty. We should open the window or something. We must be hard on ourselves. And what that hard on myself is going in honestly and holding myself to like that standard, and to be willing to take my own inventory, to be willing to look where I have been wrong. That's what we're talking about. Not beating myself up. I'm the biggest piece of garbage that ever lived. In fact, in the 11th step, when we talk about our evening review, it says we must not drift into worry or morbid reflection that I'm a piece of garbage, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. In fact, my self-hatred is part of what needs to go, what needs to be removed, because it just keeps me wrapped in the bondage of self. And what we're saying is what we need to do is we need to live with integrity and consideration. I need to be rigorously honest at looking at myself, looking at my part, and always considerate of others. Not over-responsible and codependent, you know. Let me prevent you from ever having a feeling, yes, I'm on fire. Let's just ignore that and take care of you. That's not what we're talking about. But that integrity and consideration, that's how we're called to live. And that'll be an important thing as we continue into step 9 and 8 and 9 and continue into 10 and 11 and 12. Now it goes on to say, notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be that one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. Absolutely not. This does not apply to you. Absolutely not. There are suitable people available. You can tell who they are because they look a little nervous. They're hoping I don't point them out. Jacqueline, Eileen, Peppa, Brian will, absolutely. They're getting a little nervous. Oh no, the more names. And then you'll tell because, I was just about to say because they'll turn their camera off. That's anyone's camera going off. They're available, whether they think so or not, under the bus. And if you're wondering, that is where God can be found. If you're like, where is God? Of course, this power is deep down within. But if we've been involved for a little while, we know that God is always found under the bus when we've been shoved under it to do some service we didn't want to do. So absolutely not. We are not postponing. And it says that is so. That is not so. We've got suitable people. This step may be postponed. It may not be postponed. Absolutely not. We're not postponing it. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. Opportunities now. We can get you booked today. Like, absolutely. Let's go. And it goes on to say, we say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. And by and large, that's probably going to be your sponsor. Although I will say, if you're starting to have a sense that you don't necessarily want to do it with your sponsor, I would approach that with curiosity and maybe some inventory, because that might be giving you some information about where you're being led. But what I will say is this is the information that is so helpful about who I need to be the right person to receive the fifth step. And so here it is. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence. Am I able to keep a confidence? Am I able, things that are shared with me that I'm not going to share with others? Let me tell you about what Rob did. I just thought I would even it out. If I'm giving you too many compliments, I'll pretend that he did something. He didn't. He's great. He's an angel. Just the worst when I do that, I know. But that idea that I keep what was shared with me. Absolutely, I can. It says, it is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we are driving at. Can I understand? What are we trying to do? Again, what we are trying to do is illuminate, to see the things inside of us that are blocking us, to see where we've caused harm so that we can get free of those defects and we can make those harms right, to be able to awaken spiritually. And I'll let you know, whenever I'm working with sponsees, I'm like, I approve. We approve. It is approved. Let's do your fifth step. Pew, pew. And it goes on to say that he will not try to change our plan. And I will tell you that it can be incredibly painful to have finished a fourth step, just like it's painful to sit on a fourth step and to take our time to do a fifth step. I don't want to wait. That's an incredibly painful time, because I don't get that freedom. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm available, and I want to make sure we book a time and I do everything in my power to keep that time. And it goes on to say, we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. So we don't want to put it off. We want to get through this work quickly and thoroughly, because that's where the freedom is. That's where we get free of this pain. That's where we get free of this suffering. That's how we get free. Now, one of the things that I do when I receive fifth steps, because again, we don't talk a lot about it in this book, so I want to expand and share my experience. So my experience is when I sit with my sponsees in the fourth step, I've sat with them and helped them with the vast majority of what they've written, so there's not too much going on. And so a lot of it is just going to be them reading their fourth step. But we'll sit down, and I always say, and I say this anytime I meet a sponsee, I always say, it's always good to start with a prayer. Would you like to pray? Would you like me to pray? I don't mind either way. And then we start with a prayer. And then, if I get a sense, now this is hard because I'm giving you clear-cut directions that are based only on vibes, which is a little tricky. But if I get a sense that they have that nervous energy, that they're afraid about that, to share that deep, dark secret, what I'll do is I'll offer, right at the beginning, I'll say, hey, do you want to just rip off the Band-Aid and tell me that thing that you don't want to tell me? And then we'll go read your inventory. I just make it a no thing and just let's dive in and do that. And then what they'll do is they'll read to me their inventory. But because with most of them, I've sat with them and I've given them the feedback already. We wrote it together. I need an activity, because this attention span needs something to help me focus. And so what I learned to do is I began to write what I heard them say their defects of character. Not what I assume their defects of character are. Listen, little miss, not very punctual, not like that. But what they have said through their fourth column of their resentments, through their third column of fears and second and third column of sex inventory. I write what I hear them say their defects of character are. And I always start with selfish and self-centered, because all of my defects can be boiled down. That I was trying to avoid the word distilled, and I'm like, boiled down, that'll work. I shouldn't tell you when I'm trying to avoid a word. Distilled was what I was avoiding. Anyway, they can all be boiled down to selfishness and self-centeredness, and we'll talk about this more when we get into step 6 and 7. But when that idea that my selfishness is how I behave and act in the world, and my self-centeredness is how I think and perceive. Now, the joke I always make is it's selfish of me to steal your car, sleep with your husband, and pee on your carpet. And I always say, I would never. It was linoleum. So that is selfish. But when I'm worried you don't like me because I did all those things, that is self-centered. Does that make sense? That's the difference. But I write what I hear them say all those defects of character are. And then what I do is I write what I hear them say their sex ideal is. Now, the place where I get that is the fourth column of my sex inventory, where it describes what should I have done instead. And I write that out. And then after the fifth step, I either rip it out of my notebook and give it to them, or if we're doing it virtually, I take a picture and I send it to them because I don't really need it. And I do that so they can't say, I don't know what my defects are. So we're clear about what we're taking into our 6 and 7. And so they can't say, I don't have a sex ideal, because now they for surezies do. I wrote it out and I gave it to you. And I'll tell you, I spoke about this when we were talking about sex inventory. But what I asked them to do is I asked them to type it out to me as a prayer. And then I put it on I make it kind of pretty, a thing that they can print out that, if they like the color blue, I'll make it blue. If they like roses or daffodils, I'll put those on. And I do that in the hopes what they will do is they will take that sex ideal and pray with it and meditate with it and use it. But I'm not going to type it out for them because I know by and large they probably won't. So you have to type it out and send it to me, and then I'll make a pretty little thing on Canva for you. And I'll do that for anyone, to be honest. So if you want that, I'll do that. And then so as we wrap up the fifth step, what I do at the very end is I ask, is there anything else? So this is where I always ask, even if I asked at the start, is there any secret that you didn't want to share? Is there anything else? And sometimes, not always, but I picked this habit up from Robert's Rules of Order because I'm real fun. Nothing says you're a real hoot like referencing Robert's Rules of Order. Do you know Robert's? That was his surname, not his first name. His name wasn't Rob. But we can't go on without Rob. I don't know. I just thought I'd do this, and it became a whole thing for today's study, and I'm sorry. But I'll ask 3 times and I'll let them know. It's like, hey, I'm just going to ask you 3 times. It'll be a little awkward. Is there anything else you'd like to share with me? And then they might share something. And then I'll say, okay, absolutely. I'm just going to ask 2 more times. Is there anything else? And they might share something, they might not. And I'll say, yep, okay. I'm just going to ask 1 more time. Is there anything else? To create that opportunity for if there's something just wiggling around a little bit that they can share it. And I explain what I'm doing so that they don't think, you don't believe me. No, I do. I'm being very literal and pedantic, and I'm only ever pedantic with purpose. And so that's what I'm doing with it. So then after that fifth step, what I do is I tell them again what the directions are for the quiet hour in 6 and 7, and I send them off to do that. So going on into the reading on page 75. It says, when we have decided who is to hear our story, the story is the 4th step inventory. And any deep, dark secrets. And I'll let you know, I'm a big believer when it comes to receiving the 5th step. If you took the time to write it, I will take the time to listen to it. And just for those who have perhaps not sat with their sponsees, one of the things that you might find really helpful is to say, hey, we're going to have discussion, but we're not going to have discussion in column 2. And that'll be really important because column 2, especially when we're a little nervous, we kind of want to explain and give the backstory. And it's like, so I'm resentful at this person, and then my great aunt, and then she, did this. And it's like, whoa. So you just read what you wrote and And I will listen, and we'll discuss in the fourth column. And that's going to make your life a lot easier. My first ever fifth step, it was divided, the first ever one that I shared with my first ever sponsor, it was divided into two separate days, and they were a week apart. And I want you to know that sucked. I hated that. I hated it. It was so painful in between. So what I do with my sponsees is I will book a whole chunk of time. I'll book a day, and we will sit down and power through it. Now, I don't just force them to power through it. Some people just can't and need to break it up a little bit. But if we break it up, we try to do it as close together as we possibly can. But I'm a get-her-done sort of gal. I was a get-her-done sort of gal when I was drinking, and you betcha I'm a get-her-done sort of gal when I'm listening to your fifth step. We're gonna get her done. And you can have snacks if you want. So just throwing that out there. Have snacks. Have a good time, you know? So it says, when we have decided to hear who is to hear our story, we waste no time, so we dive in. We don't want to wait. It says we have a written inventory. Do we? Check, make sure we do. And we are prepared for a long talk. Now, this is one of those places where it helps us to figure out, have I been searching and fearless and thorough in my fourth step? And when we were wrapping up the chapter, how it works, it told us, hey, we have written down a lot. So if I've written down a lot, I know I have been fearless and thorough in my fourth step. If I've killed a pen or two, you know, when you take a pen to its end, which I always think is a lot of fun. I'm like, yeah, that was me. I did that. I don't do sports anymore, so maybe that's the only activity I get. Like, yeah. But it's that same idea. If I have this written inventory and I'm prepared for a long talk, if I can see that, man, to read all this out, that's going to be a bit of a long talk, then I want to, I want to make sure that I've been fearless and thorough. And actually, I've done fifth steps with sponsors. I've done fifth steps out at Mount St. Francis. There used to be a local nun that would receive them. And I want you to know, I'll tell you the story. I bored the nun. I thought I'm this big, bad, like, you haven't done what I've done. Like, ooh, I got so much stuff. And the nun is bored. And then another nun was like, a separate fifth step. She was like, all right, skip that one, skip that one, skip that one, skip that one. They're just the same, right? And part of that experience taught me that, like, one, I'm not as important as I think I am. But two, that idea of like, hey, again, if you wrote it, I'm going to listen to it. Because I found helpful for me. And I didn't like it when people were like, let's just skip that. That one's the same. I'm like, oh, but I wanted to get her done, and I'm a get her done sort of drunk, and this doesn't feel like we're getting her done. So I just wanted to share that, which I always think is funny. Get her done as opposed to get her done. All right, get her done, got her did already. So it says we have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. Now, if we do that with our sponsor, now I want to be clear, that is our sponsor. You don't have to necessarily tell your spouse, all right, spouse, I am going to do a fifth step. Although it can be helpful to let them know because you're going to be away for a couple hours. Give them the heads up on that. But we're explaining to the person who is receiving our fifth step what we are about to do and why we have to do it, because they're the ones that need to know. But if we do it with our sponsor, girl, they know. We don't skipped you a step, save you some time. You're welcome. How thoughtful of me. Alrighty. And it says, he should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. And that is important. That this really is a matter of life and death. And that really is why I am so adamant about, like, all right, like, let's go, let's not waste any time. Like, let's go after it. Let's go after these steps. As we spoke about in step one, I spoke about that window of willingness. What will happen is I don't just have to do this with drinking, but I will drink myself into so much pain that a window cracks open where I'm willing to take action I wasn't willing to take before. Now, I can do that sober. I can be dry and sober, and I'm happy to be here, and I can get myself in so much pain Well, where I'm willing to take action, I wasn't willing to take before. But if I don't take that action within that window always closes. It always closes. And we know this from our own experience. Remember that last time you went to a meeting and they were talking about step 9 and you thought about that amends that we were avoiding? I know you guys would never. And you got the twisty and the resisty and it's like, oh, I got to make that amends. And then we didn't take action on it and we were able to toss it in the back of our mind again and put it off. It's that exact same thing. So when I talk about moving through the steps quickly and thoroughly, this is why. Because it is a life and death matter. Because if I have this illness, that window will close, and what will happen for an alcoholic is the obsession of the mind will return and I will drink again. And I don't know what's going to happen if I'm going to be able to get back. It's a reminder for me that if I am sober today, I have a precious gift that I need to nurture. And I nurture it through the action of the 12 steps if I'm an alcoholic. It goes on to say, most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. And to be fair, your sponsor is hopefully glad to help. Otherwise, maybe get a new one. Fair enough. But it is a tremendous honor to receive a 5th step. And again, that's the posture of my heart that I want to bring into the 5th step process. That I'm treating this with, of course, I've done 5th steps where we're laughing around, we're joking around, because there is some humor and there is some fun and we're having snacks and you know what I mean? But the posture of my heart is with this gravitas, this sincerity, because this is such a privilege. And I want you to know, so that being honored by our confidence. And I'll talk about this in 6 and 7 as well. But it was after I did my first ever 5th step that I felt, like I was a part of AA. That was when I really began to feel a part of AA. And that was probably more me than anything else. You remember, when you decide you are, all that. But it was when I did that 5th step that I felt a part of this thing. But I want you to know it wasn't until I started to receive the 5th steps of others that I really began to feel a part of the human race, a part of humanity. And I want you to know that I've been doing this for a long time. And I'm just working with regular alcoholics, plain old drunks. And there is not a deep, dark secret that I haven't heard. There is not a I've heard it all. I really have. And I'm not hanging out in San Quentin. I have heard it all. And I want to share with you my experience. And this is what I'm going to end on. Next week, we'll talk about how we do a 5th step. It's like 2 sentences. But what I want to share with you is every single time I receive a 5th step, and that sponsor, that person that's sharing with me their 5th step, they share with me that secret. They share with me their shame, that thing that happened to them, the thing that they did, the thing that they're drinking behind, the thing that they don't think that they can survive, the thing that they think makes them the worst human being on earth. What I want you to know is how I feel about them changes, but not in the way I would have expected. You see, I love them more. I love them more. I am a piss in my pants behind the dumpster, pinkies up because I'm a lady, sort of drunk. I can't stay sober on my own power. I can't stay not suicidal on my own power. I love them more. I love them more. And if that is how I can feel about you, imagine how God, higher power, the creator, the spirit of the universe, the divine, feels about you. Because there's no way I'm doing better than God in the love department. And that's what is available to each and every one of us. And I'm a minute over, so that's not bad. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much.